Good afternoon. Thank you for joining my channel, Gardening on One Knee in Zone 5B. My name is Janelle, and I'm going to show you some of the things that I've learned along the way for gardening and help take some of the intimidation out of it for you and maybe answer some questions. Today, we're starting with cold stratification. It's not a term you hear real often. All it is putting seeds in a moist environment, and it has to be cold, like the refrigerator. So I started these in early January, and some seeds need a certain length of time. Today's that I'm going to be doing are one type of a perennial, and then the rest are herbs. In my experience, things that need cold stratification usually are perennials or herbs, never really annuals. So without further ado, we're going to get started. Now I prepped all my seed trays yesterday, and the first one I'm going to do is primrose. I grew this last year, but I only ended up with one plant out of all the seeds that I had. It was a low germination rate, and I got a little discouraged, and then the plant died. It might have been me loving it too much. I don't know. But anyway, this is just a really cute flower. When I see it in a catalog to buy the actual plant, it's like $20 or more. So I decided to order the seeds when I found them. And it is this. Isn't that cute? I think it's going to be really cute. So I wanted to try again cold stratifying and see if I can get them to grow. So all I'm really going to do, now today I don't need to save these bags because any seeds that I'm going to handle today, they're going right into the soil and their cold stratification is done. And when I started this, I just looked up how long does it take to cold stratify? And I would write it on here so that I would know when I can pull these out of the refrigerator and plant them. Now, I did this before I knew I was going to have a YouTube channel, but I thought it's really a great opportunity to explain what cold stratification is and just show you really how simple it is. All I did was label my bags, and you can kind of see that here a little backwards. Primrose, the date, how long for cold stratification. And then there's all my seeds on the wet paper towel, zip, and I put it in the fridge. So I don't have to be really gentle with these bags. I'm not going to be saving them for anything else. So let's go ahead and get started here. Now, the one thing I also want to just double check is if it has to be surface sowed. And what surface sowed means is that the seeds just need to be on the top of the soil. If you plant them, they're not going to grow. They'll probably rot and decompose. Some of them need to see that sunlight in order to trigger them to grow. So let's just see what this one says. It says barely cover as light aids germination. And remember, germination means sprouting. So I'm just going to get these really just on the surface. I'm going to kind of work up the surface since I watered this in pretty heavy last night. So I'm just going to take my toothpick and just kind of, just kind of loosen it up so that once it does start to grow some roots, it's got a place to go. Now, I might not plant all of these with you on camera today because it's going to probably get a little boring, but just to give you the gist of it and talk a little bit about it. Some of the ones that I did cold stratification on, they're herbs for medicinal purposes. Kind of want to talk to you about that too. Nothing wrong with having your own pharmacy, but I always would say do your own research, and if you have a condition that might need doctor advice on, talk to your doctor before you do this. For example, I have a thyroid problem. So I found out that I can't have anything wasabi, which that's the mustard that I was raised on. I didn't know. Us kids would be stuffed up and my mom would slather some wasabi on toast and give it to us, and whew, everything would start draining. Another thing I did not know I could not have until I started growing it was lemon balm. And I really like lemon balm tea. So I'm not going to be growing that anymore. So as you see, I'm just kind of like tearing the bag, and I'm going to try to get as many of these seeds out and onto soil. Now I see there's one little one here. I think what I'm going to try to do is put 2 seeds per cell. We'll try that. Oh, that's not going to work. Let's try opening this up just a little bit more. There we go. If these seeds were, a different color, like bright yellow, I would just put it on the soil and then scatter them about, but they're dark, so I won't see them once they're on the soil. So let's just see about maybe getting 2 seeds into a cell. Yep, there's one done. Not all primrose are perennials. We have a couple varieties that survive here. Most often, all I really ever see are the yellow ones. Yellow seems to be a dominant color for perennials. It's a pretty color, but I don't want everything yellow. I want different colors. So out in my garden, I have perennials that are red, yellow, orange, purple, pink, just a variety. Let me see if I can get this. Yep. Like that. We'll see about getting some more. Be nice if all of these grew. I would love to have the problem of not knowing where to go with them all. A good problem to have. And don't let me forget to label my tray. That's usually something I start with right away, and I did not. Only myself to blame. So there we got 6 of them seeded so far. Yeah, what would I do if they all grew? Sounds like a problem for future me. And this doesn't really take so long. Once you get going, you get a system down, and you get a little bit of a rhythm. I'm just trying to put just 2 seeds per cell. I have a strong feeling that there's probably going to be 3 in some of these. We'll wait and see what happens. I'm not sure if you saw my video from this morning where I set up my growing rack out in the living room with grow lights and one of those foil emergency bags to kind of reflect the light back into the plants. So I'll be anxious to see how that all works out. That's my first time using those foil emergency blankets for gardening. And there we go. Just a couple more to go. I'm already half done with this one. So bear with me. I'll just turn this around because I already did the first 2 rows. So let's do the next 2 rows. Come on. You know, another thing too with these, it's not a bad idea for you to kind of like run your finger and find the ridges of where the outline of the cells are. That way you're not just dumping everything into one area like I might have done. We'll see. May not be terrible. All right. There we go. Oops, this one didn't want to go in there. There we go. And what do we got? We've got 4 or 5 more left. So I think what I'm going to do is just put these in these first 9 cells, and then I'll put something in this last one. So that's how I'm going to label this container. And that just means that some of these are going to be tripled up. But again, like I said, last year I seeded these and I did not have the greatest germination rate. And you're going to find that some seeds are a little fussy. I told one of my friends a couple years ago that I was growing stevia, and she says, "Oh, good luck with that." I said, "Really, how so?" And she said, "You might plant 12 seeds and one's going to germinate." So funny she said that, because it was 12 seeds that came in the packet, and I planted all 12, thinking, well, which one is the one that's going to germinate? They all grew. That made me happy. All right, so now I'm going to make 3 labels for each row here, just so I know what's in each row. And the primrose, let's see, when did I start that? January 3rd. go. Oops. Got one label. I think I'd be mortified if I all of a sudden had a tray out on the grow rack and it didn't have a label and I wouldn't know what's in there. I probably could figure it out just by process of elimination. But I just don't want to put myself through that stress. Primrose. I hope these all grow. I can't remember. I gotta look real quick. This was one of them that wanted part shade. Is that why I wanted to grow these? Oh no, it needs full sun, 8 to 12 hours. They might not be real happy here in Wisconsin because our sunlight hours, yeah, they are at least 12 hours. Yeah, it'll be fine. All right, so what's gonna be our next one here? Next one is anise. And I was cold stratifying 6 seeds, so I'm going to put 2 in each cell. Let's see what happens. I grew this only for culinary purposes, you know, for baking and cooking. So again, I just made my little baggie with the name anise, and I put the date down, and I put how many days that it needs for cold stratification. In this case, it was 30, so we're past that. That's not going to hurt it. So we're just going to make a label here. This is actually called frog tape. I like using this because it's not as hard to get the residue off. So like it peels off of these trays really easy and there's not that sticky residue like you would get with masking tape or duct tape. I don't know why you would use duct tape. Duct tape is really expensive. This roll here, this is probably my fifth year with this roll. You know, because all I am doing is using little patches like this usually. All right, enough of that. So we're going to make a label for anise. And then I'm going to put January 4th because that's the day I decided to cold stratify this. Again, I don't need to save the bag. Yeah, put the label on here so I know what I got. And then, let's see, do I have the anise? Yes, anise. Let's see what this one says for, does it have to be surface soap? Surface sowed. 18 inches tall. No, it doesn't say. So this is one that I can kind of put in the ground. And this is what the flower looks like. And then let's see, let's get that out of the way. Yeah, I'm just going to kind of tear this open. Remember, I'm not saving the bags. No need for that. Well, this is like a treat. These seeds are much, much bigger. You can kind of see here, some of them plumped up better than others. So like this one here might be a viable seed where the one right next to it might not because it never really plumped up. But I'm not giving up. So let's see here. Put that in there. These are nice and easy to grab. So remember, today we're cold stratified planting. There we go. You can sprinkle a little of that soil on there. Next. I imagine that this would be something that when the flower goes to seed, it drops the seeds, and then it goes through the process of winter, and winter does the job of the cold stratification. Come on. That was just some dirt. And then the last one here. And just put that down there. Now I was careful not to bring soil from this far back in the tray to these front 3 rows because remember we surface sowed those seeds. So they're just sitting on the top. They're so tiny I wouldn't be able to see them. So now this little flat little tray is done. For now I'm just going to cover it and set it out on the side. These are my peppers that are still growing. So far, I think I've planted about 20 viable pepper seeds. So that project's moving right along. All right, so my next one is arnica. I don't know if you've ever heard of arnica. If you've ever had a major surgery or were in a car accident or had a nasty fall, your doctor might say, pick up some arnica cream for that bruise. It'll diffuse the blood underneath the skin a little bit quicker. And I walked into the corner of a wood pile in the garage. This was a year ago in October. So I had this bruise for, I don't know, probably 5 or 6 months. And I had to go to the doctor for a routine checkup. I think it was in May or June. And I pointed it out to her and she's like, how long have you had that bruise? And I said, since October, I was bringing wood in the house. And she said, get some arnica cream and try that. So I did, and it really lightened it up. It's not like a fresh looking bruise anymore. It's barely there. Other thing with arnica, it's also known as a toothache plant. Now, I grew this last year. I have one plant out there, or two, one for sure. And it gets these tiny yellow flowers. So what I did was I infused those flowers in 100% vodka, because when you say toothache plant, what's the first thing that you think of? So when you go to the dentist and they numb you, that's exactly how your mouth feels. And that's not from the 100% vodka. It's the flavor of that flower, believe it or not. Now, I didn't have a tooth problem, but I wanted to challenge the name and kind of see if that's true. And I'm like, well, yeah, it's true. So that is why I planted arnica. Trying to develop a little bit of a herbal pharmacy here. Arnica. And this was started on January 4th. And I only have 5 seeds in here. And you can see they're quite a bit larger and they're more of a sliver shape. So I'm just going to designate one row and I'll put 1 or 2 seeds into each row. There we go. And this is the packet. Now, this is one of those that doesn't have a map on it or a picture of the plant. I grew it, that's why I know it gets little yellow flowers. And my plant only probably got this high. And they said that you really won't see many flowers or any flowers until maybe the 2nd year. But I did get, I don't know, 10 or 12 flowers. That's why I think I had 2 plants. And I picked them and I just kind of experimented with that. Yeah, there's still seeds in here. So it says to surface soak. So remember, that just means putting the seeds on the top. And that is what we're going to do. Now, I really did soak these down, but I brought my little dribble bottle here because if I see any cells that seem dry, I'm going to dribble some water on. The reason why I like using a dribble bottle like this, or maybe like a water bottle that's got the cap, that pops up, it's kind of like you can control where you're putting it. And it's not going to like flood like if you're using a watering can. That's why I like to use some kind of a bottle. Now this is an old dishwashing soap bottle that I washed out. I don't know, it's quite a few years old. Every year I think it's going to crack and I'm going to have to throw it away. But it strives on with me. All right, let's see how easy these are to handle. Sometimes I use a toothpick, sometimes I can use my finger. All right. Oh yeah, these are pretty easy. Surface soil. So you don't have to cover with soil. So we'll just put one here. One here. And one here. I think, like I said earlier, I think there's only one of these little baggies that I have to put back in the refrigerator because it hasn't had enough time. We'll double check that. I think I purposely put it on the bottom so that I wouldn't accidentally grab it and get it planted too soon. So there we go. Arnica. Good for diffusing bruises and for a toothache. So that, what? Oh, stinker. So that might be something good to have on hand, because it always seems like when something goes wrong with my teeth, it's always on the weekend. So that might be something that can carry me through the weekend until I can get to my dentist or get an appointment at my dentist. All right, moving right along, we have St. John's wort. Again, I just put the date down, and it says here that it takes 4 to 6 weeks to cold stratify minimally. So that's what I did. Can you see the seeds? Tiny. You can kind of see these little dark spots. That could be like some mold, some imperfections within the paper towel itself. I never get too excited about that. Now, last year I grew 2 St. John's wort plants, and they were a little hard to get going too. I remember planting, I think, 6 plants and only 2 survived. So again, nothing always, not everything goes perfect for me either. I have some casualties throughout the whole process. St. John's wort, and wort is W-O-R-T, and that says January 4th. This one gets a nice little yellow flower like this, and this is something that is said to like pick up your mood. Now, people with depression, they think, oh, St. John's wort capsules or tea or whatever, and then they expect instantaneous results. But when you're suffering from depression or anxiety or anything like that, a lot of times it takes medications and things to build up in your system for it to actually become effective. St. John's wort is one of those. Several years ago, there was this big kick like, you rah, St. John's wort, you don't need your medicine anymore, you can do this. And people were kind of stopping their medicine and taking this, and they didn't understand why it wasn't working. But you have to give it time to build up. When I say give it time, it could be 3 or 4 weeks. And if you're in a fragile state of mind, that could be too long. So this is something tread lightly with. I also read that this is, I think, good for like inflammation or arthritis. It's kind of cool too, because these flowers here, I can harvest some of these, but then the bud itself, when you squeeze the bud and it produces a purple juice, that's when it's in its prime. And I think I always would harvest these in the morning or like up until noon, and then I would let the plant just do its plant thing for the rest of the day. So it was just kind of a neat plant. And I have some pictures where when I was starting to infuse it, in about 10 minutes, the liquid was already starting to turn purple, and about 90 minutes later, you could, hardly see the flowers and the buds anymore because it had turned purple. I did dry some of this. I then used that, I infused that with, I believe, grapeseed oil and calendula, so that I could have like a skin kind of a salve. So let's see, does this say surface soil? Gently pressing into the soil. All right, rules. And, they're really teeny tiny seeds. So again, I'm just gonna probably take up 2, 3 rows. I would really like to have a lot of this because I would like to plant it below the hill along the tree line, just for a little bit of color. And I think sometimes too, like this, to me, whenever I see it in pictures, it always seems like it's in a more wild environment. So I think it might be happier than just growing up against my garage. So what am I gonna do here? This one, 4 to 6 weeks, so we're okay there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Marshmallow. We're going to talk about that one next. So let's see here. I think what I'm going to do is put St. John's wort in these 3 rows. I'm trying to start things and keep them together in the trays so that their sprouting time is about the same, so that I can lift off the plastic lids for this, like around the same time for all the plants. Because remember, if you leave the lids on too long, something called dampening off happens, and that means that it's too humid, the plant can't thrive, and all of a sudden it kinks over. And that right there can end the plant's life, is by it kinking. A lot of plants can't recover, especially at that young age. They're a little bit more fragile. So when you see them starting to grow, I kind of always just like eyeball the whole group, like, can I take the lid off? When it's more than half, I take the lid off. Let's see here. I'm gonna do St. John's wort and one more St. John's wort. I also planted chamomile last year because it's supposed to be such a relaxing tea. It's really bitter. If you like coffee, you'll love it. I don't like coffee. So it was not something for me. I still grow it though, because it wouldn't hurt for me to put some chamomile with maybe another herb and then part of a stevia leaf, and that'll sweeten it up. And not everything that's good for you tastes great. Prime example is cough syrup. I don't even know if that's good for you, but yeah. Now again, I don't have to try to save this bag, so I'm gonna I don't want to say rip it open like a bear, but I'm gonna rip it open like a bear. And let's see if any are sticking to the front part of the bag. They are not. So that's good. All right. Oh, look at how tiny they are. All right, let's go at it. I can't even see if that's on there. Syrup seed. I think I'm just gonna have to do it with my fingertips. Oh, that's gonna be a challenge too. I'm curious to know how many actually get in the ground here. And it said surface slope, so press lightly in. I'm kind of afraid if I press it, it's gonna stick to my finger. I'll wash it off and go down the drain. It'll be all this for nothing. There we go. So that'll be number 3. Oh, whatever I brush, I would brushed up against some perlite. Yeah, so the perlite kind of cleaned off the tip of the toothpick. That's kind of nice. Remember, perlite is the thing in the soil that's white, and it's in there to kind of help with drainage. And when it's dry, it crumbles like a powder. I was kind of showing you examples of that the other night. Oh, there it is. So that's in the front one. Yep, that's a seed. Boy, they're like dust. I think that's off. Sometimes it takes a lot of work to get the things that are most beneficial for you. That's kind of true with a lot of things in life. The things that are good for you in life are usually achieved with effort. They just don't fall into your lap. I got it underneath my fingernail. Oh, brother. Get it out of there. Yeah, I did. Okay. So I'm down to about 4 seeds in here, so I'm just gonna fill up this last row. One cell is gonna have 2 in it. And luckily the marshmallow seeds are quite a bit easier to see. Kind of like when you do a whole bunch of tasks and you save something easy for last, it always goes so much better. All right, is that it? Yep, that's it. Come on. So see, now if you would be doing cold stratification and you would have this struggle, now you know it's normal. There we go, there's the last one. There. St. John's wort. Well, I hope my plant that I planted last year didn't die over winter, because I sure don't want to go over this year after year after year. And when I'm putting these lids on, I'm just making sure that my tops are closed. There we go. The next one is marshmallow root. Let's see here. Marshmallow. Now, I grow something similar to this, but I always called it mallow or malva. So I don't know if it's the same thing, but this is actually the medicinal herb. Let's see here. Does not need to be surface sowed. So marshmallow's kind of cool because way back in the day, the 2-year-old plants or older, the roots can be harvested and they're sweet. They can be beaten, ground up, and cooked up, and they will taste sweet like a marshmallow. I always thought that was kind of neat. Plus the flowers are pretty. And if this behaves like the other one, it's going to create a brown seed head about the size of a dime, but it's going to be loaded with lots and lots and lots and lots of seeds, just like what these are. Now this says to cold stratify 4 to 6 weeks. So this is plenty of time. See how nice and big those seeds are? And I'm going to do a full tray of these because I like them so much. Oops, there we go. This marshmallow, this is good for dry coughs, which I usually get in the wintertime, and I think it's just because my house is so dry. It's good for inflamed tissue. It's good for an upset bowel, respiratory problems. If you have an acidic stomach, this would help. So it's got so many purposes, which is why I want to grow a lot of it, because you actually kind of have to kill the plant to get the medicinal part out of it. But if I can get a section of these growing and they reseed themselves, I'm in business. So we will go with marshmallow. And these were started on January 3rd. So it's more than 4 to 6 weeks. But again, my winter here is not 4 to 6 weeks. And where I have my mallow or my malva plant, I always have stuff that's growing that pops up. So I know that the extra time in the refrigerator isn't gonna hurt this. So now this one doesn't say surface sow, so I'm gonna kind of gonna label my tray so I don't wonder what this is. And I'm just gonna kind of make a hole and hopefully guide the seeds into the hole. I'm not going real deep, I just kind of, I don't know. You can kind of see how dirty the toothpick is. That's about all deep the hole is. Now I still have leftover seeds in the packet. And what did we say about that? Don't throw them away. They're gonna be fine. All right. Again, I don't need to save this bag, but I want to make sure that they're not sticking to the front part where all the writing is, and they are not. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Oh, there's more than 12. All right, here we go. Let's get this toothpick here to kind of roll them off my fingertip. I just kind of always think that herbs are so cool. And like I said, you got to do a little bit of homework on them, because just because the book says it's good for a dry cough, well, what if you have asthma and you don't want to damage your airway with an herb? The other thing too, now luckily I'm not on a ton of medication or anything, but some of these herbs can interfere with whatever your doctor has prescribed for you. So it's always good to run it by your doctor, like, hey, I think I want to try marshmallow. What are your thoughts? And they'll say probably no, because let's say if you start using something that does not work well with your medication and you start getting bad, you know, like you are getting sicker, then it's hard for them to gauge what to do about the dosage on the medication because they don't know how much the herb is interfering with you. Where the medication has been manufactured the same way over and over, it's been studied, so they know what the results are, they know how to adjust the dosage. But when you mix up an herb in your medication sources, you could be mixing up your doctor too. I don't think I have one in this cell, but I have extra seeds. So if there's 2, I'm not gonna cry about it. Well, come on, don't you want to go? There you go. Now you're home. There's another one. Actually, these are kind of rolling right off my fingertip. Nice. Other seeds that are like dust are impatiens, moss rose, petunias. Snapdragons are a little small, but they're worth it. I plant those every year. Coleus, that's another one that's really small. If everything was the size of a corn seed and a sunflower seed, it wouldn't be really fun. It always amazes me the things I can grow out of a little seed. No, what really amazes me is when I plant things like tomatoes and peppers out in my garden and they're only about this tall and they look like they're so lost and alone out there, and I'm like, oh, they're gonna fill in, and they do. There, last one. There. Okay. Now it said to lightly cover. So what I'm just gonna do is kind of tap the soil. I can see the seeds on the surface of some of these, so I'm just gonna kind of push them down a little bit, like this. Let's see if I can show you here on the camera. Like that, like that. And remember, I got these set up last night and I got them watered, so these are already plenty damp. So when I'll cover them, but I'm gonna keep an eye on these over the next day, because if I have to dribble some more water in, I can do that. There. All right, so we got marshmallow planted. The only one left that's got to go back 3 months, January, February, March. So this is clary sage. You can kind of see those seeds there. This has to cold stratify for 3 months. So I'm just at the 2-month mark. I knew there was one. This is my last one that I'm cold stratifying. This one here, it's got a pink flower, I remember. And this is an example of one of those seed packets that really don't have a picture or a map. So you have to kind of read it. Directly sow in the garden after spring frost. But I know I read that this is cold strat. Oh yeah. Oh no, it says cold stratification, no. I read quite a bit that said, yes, it is cold stratify. I still am going to let this go for another, at least a couple weeks. This is one for medicinal purposes. It helps with things like menopause, like say you have a kidney infection. What else? Digestive, it says here also. And this is one too that it has an essential oil that's very fragrant. The flowers are fragrant, so that's why the essential oil is fragrant, which is kind of cool. There is not a lot of scientific data on this one, so they really can't say if it's effective for those things that I just listed or not. I really feel like I should just plant these and be done with it. Yeah, we're gonna be, no, I'm gonna wait. I left out all my seed packages that I was cold stratifying, just so that, you know, I can kind of read them and get more familiar with what's on the envelope and such. And I just kind of put a little clip on the top. And I usually put them on my counter so that they're leaning like this, so that they're not tipping. Because if any seeds spill out, I will not know what they are, and they'll have to all get thrown away. So, some other herbs that I have out in the garden are mullein, and you'll see this kind of growing in the ditches. It shoots out a real tall stalk with a yellow flower on it. It's got real fuzzy leaves that are soft, kind of like a sage color. I grow that outside too. I actually purchased seed for like I think it's more of a salmon type of a flower. And then that one is good for like muscle spasms, a cough expectorant. You know, an expectorant is something that loosens up the mucus in your lungs so that when you cough, it comes out, so that you're not building up problems to maybe cause pneumonia. I'm trying to think, what else do I have out there? Calendula. Well, I don't have it out there, but I seed calendula every year because it's got so many medicinal properties, specifically for skin repair. So if you're somebody with acne, this would be a good salve. I just make it by infusing the calendula flowers. I dry them because I made the mistake several times. See, nothing's perfect for me. I made the mistake of a couple times where I thought the flowers were dry enough, and I started the infusing process with grapeseed oil. And then after about 3 weeks, I opened the lid just to see how everything was, only to find that it was all mold. So I had to dump it. So I usually just use dried flowers, and really it's the flower petals, I guess, that have the most medicinal properties. They also have kind of a resin, meaning they're sticky. Like a petunia, if you've ever pinched off a petunia flower head and you get that stickiness on your fingers, that's exactly how a calendula is, and that's the way it's supposed to be. And they say to pick calendula before noon, just as the dew is drying off. So that's what I do, is I pick it, I kind of dry it off, and then I dehydrate it on racks here in the living room. It's a really nice flower for skin repair. Scratches, scrapes, you can do that. When I make salves, I just drain off the oil from the flowers, toss out the flowers, and then I will shave down some beeswax. There's a beekeeper in the area that sells beeswax. So I shave that down, and then I just mix it up and I pour it off into little pots. So I have calendula salve for, especially in the summertime, I'm getting scraped up. I cut the lawn and I'm scraped up by the cedars or whatnot. So it's kind of a nice soothing salve, and you'd be surprised, it's not greasy. You'd be surprised at how quick your skin drinks that up. So that's another one that I grow. The other thing too is Solomon seal. Now I planted this as a perennial by my back gate on both sides. It gets about 3 feet tall and it gets a white flower. It's really kind of fragrant, very pretty, but that has some medicinal properties too. I'm trying to think what it was. I'd have to look it up again, but I was surprised when I read that. That's what I do in the wintertime, is I read a lot of herb books, and then I find out that, oh, I already have that here. I just didn't know. Some of the weeds that we pull in, we used to call it pigweed, but it's not really pigweed, but it almost looks like a succulent, stays really low to the ground, and it gets like a thicker red stem with little green leaves that are kind of like a sedum. It's a weed, but that's got therapeutic properties to it. Lamb's quarters, which is something like, I don't know, ragweed is what we called it, but I think I'm wrong on that. But that's another one that's got medicinal properties. You'd be surprised at how many things in your yard or on your property have medicinal properties. Now, in the front yard, I do treat my lawn only because I'm in the village and they have some expectations. You don't want it to look like an unkept property. I don't like doing it, but I try to stay under the radar with the village. In the backyard, I don't want to fertilize or treat anything, because if there's ever flooding, then whatever chemical I have on the lawn, it's going to wash into the water. And I don't know, I just don't like the thought that I would be causing harm to little critters and creatures, and maybe some other plants that I don't want to be killing. So that's why I don't really do anything down below the hill by the creek. Plus, it's kind of sandy down there, so if I take a little trawl with me, I can pull up dandelions really easy. Sometimes I get creeping Charlie down there. It's kind of like a viney thing that just works its way through the lawn. I can just kind of slowly pull that up and it comes right out. So a lot of this stuff kind of takes time, and I don't know what kind of time you have, but to me it's just, I don't know, therapeutic, you know, that I don't know, just digging in the dirt, it's therapeutic. Improving something is therapeutic for me. So anyway, that's what I have to say about cold stratification. Remember, all it is certain seeds need to be in a cool and moist area for anywhere from a couple weeks to a couple months in order for a more successful germination rate. And again, they're only on wet paper towel in a labeled baggie. They've been in the top shelf of my refrigerator since the beginning part of January. And now we're to the point where they're almost all in the ground. So I hope that this was informative for you. I'd be curious to see what other kinds of things that you might be growing that require cold stratification too, just to get ideas. I don't know everything. I don't claim to know everything. I love talking to other people who garden. I feel like I get my best information and my best conversations with people that garden. So with that, I'm going to say goodbye, and I will see you the next video. Please like, subscribe, and follow. Thank you. Have a great day. Bye.